Alrighty. Hi, everyone. My name is Brielle Sajazi. I am a trend researcher with WGSN's consultancy division, Mindset. If you're unfamiliar, WGSN is the world's leading trend authority. So we're tracking trends across industries, markets, and seasons, basically forecasting consumer insights and consumer product expectations for the seasons and years ahead of us. But today specifically, we're going to be diving into autumn winter 2021 for both women's and kids markets. Now, I don't have to tell you the last year has been extremely interesting for fashion and apparel specifically, just in the way that so many of our expectations and our needs around what we're wearing and what we're buying for those day-to-day needs and expectations again have changed and shifted. But looking forward, the new season is very, very exciting and very full of optimism as this consumer is getting ready to go out into the world again with vaccines rolling out, with more comfort around resuming our day-to-day lives. This shift within fashion apparel is definitely going to be manifesting, and you'll be seeing that today in the two trend toolkits that we've prepared for you. So as a quick agenda for the presentation that we'll be going over, as I said, we have two trend toolkits, one for women's wear and one for kids wear. And the way that each of these toolkits is structured is to first give you kind of a narrative of the trend overall, how we'll be communicating it to the consumer, which of those consumer behaviors and insights we'll be speaking to most specifically, and really just giving this broad overview picture of how this trend will be manifesting within their daily lives and within their style needs. Then next, we'll be looking into actual trend aesthetics and manifestations of how these consumer behaviors and indicators will be showing up as actual product. So we'll first start as a color palette, looking at key driving seasonal and also trend forward colors for each of these trends. We'll then be showing how different larger style narratives and style concepts will be pushing forward this trend in large ways. Then we'll be moving into more granular aspects of the toolkit, looking at key items. So those very trend forward key items for each of these toolkits that will really compel the trend with specific pieces. We'll be going even more granular then and looking at key details that will give consumers smaller aspects of each product and each item to really pull that trend in. And then finally, we'll be wrapping up with key prints and patterns that will give the trend shape and narrative as well. So as I said, we'll be doing this across both women's wear and kids wear markets. But first, we'll be starting off with our women's wear trend toolkit, which is all about premium comfort. Now, the word comfort has obviously been very trend forward in the last year, as comfort has been a huge seeking point for consumers, and I'm sure for you and I sitting on either side of this conference. But with comfort, we first started the pandemic looking for comfort in very obvious ways, right? Looking for things that were elasticized, really reaching for our sweatpants over anything, and just wanting to be able to hold on to anything that gave us some sense of solace and ease within the stress and anxiety of the last year. But there's also this version in consumer sentiment of you can only be in sweats for so long. You can only give yourself this really eased and relaxed day-to-day lifestyle for so long before you want to have a little bit more normalcy and a little bit more attention back to how things used to be. And so while we still need this sense of comfort moving forward, it's going to be revamped for the new season. And that's what Premium Comfort trend and this trend toolkit is really about. So this female consumer, we know she's still looking for comfort within the fall winter season. Obviously, the world's going to be changing in really exciting and hopefully optimistic ways, but there is still so much up in the air in terms of what that world will look like. How will our day-to-day lives really be changing? How safe will we be moving forward? And these are definitely premium concerns within her mindset and within how she's preparing for her day-to-day. And so because of this added layer of stress and anxiety that has just continued for the last few seasons, she's still going to be looking for that sense of comfort, but as we discussed, in a new and adapted mindset. And so whereas that comfort used to be around being almost kind of lazy or lethargic or very cocooning and welcoming, now it's being rebranded into a more premium light. And the reason why we have this premium word attached to the trend is because of the revaluation and reprioritization that we've seen her go through within lockdown. So within this lockdown time, being stuck inside, having so much time on our hands, we were noticing consumers really take that time to reprioritize their values, how they're spending their hours each day, how they're spending their energy each day, and taking stock in what they care about and how they're actually manifesting that in their day-to-day life. And so as she went through this process of, really reevaluating a lot of her decisions, her choices, her beliefs, her behaviors, she'll start to be reinvesting then into new products and experiences that actually line up to what she thinks matters most. And so what are those things that she thinks matters most? Well, for this consumer, what makes her truly comfortable are going to be ideas around quality, around things that are durable and last long, again, through this very tumultuous time. Items that are going to last in her closet for a long period of time and not wear out, that aren't just going to be seasonal, but can be trans-seasonal and mix and match through the years. She's going to be wanting to buy less, but also buy better. So not just being minimalist for the sake of being minimalist, but really wanting to invest again in those key quality and premium pieces that are going to allow her to expand her wardrobe, expand her lifestyle, but without being frivolous or without really speaking into pieces that are going to fall apart in a couple months. And she's also going to be looking for pieces that are modular and adaptable. So things that she can wear for multiple experiences and occasions rather than specific occasion wear items. She's going to want to have items that can mix and match through, again, those different experiences and those different events, and let her live and breathe within this new season, whatever it may look like, and kind of take a backseat as she moves forward within it. So this is the trend concept around premium comfort. Again, looking for that comfort into all of the unexpectedness of the season coming ahead, but still having that premium caliber and quality as she looks to adapt comfort past its first wave of the pandemic and into a more elevated light as she moves ahead. So within Premium Comfort, we have our first color palette of this trend toolkit to share with you. And color is going to be more important than ever within this trend toolkit, mainly because it is what is going to help lift a lot of those pieces into more classic and easy to wear silhouettes. So classic colors and more premium colors are going to be really at the core of this trend as we use color in very sophisticated and thoughtful ways. So you'll notice we have a lot of calming midtones within this trend toolkit to really have that aspirational and also nostalgic type of aesthetic. But then they are also going to be offset by a couple of darker hues that are going to work well as accents for this piece and for this trend. You'll also notice that a lot of these colors are going to be grounded in a lot of more natural hues and aesthetics. And that's because, again, within this sense of comfort, it's not necessarily about just lounging away, but also grounding yourself in things that are actually going to give you comfort and solace in a positive and healthy way. And so using nature as solace for that experience is obviously really key for this consumer. And so that is definitely going to be an inspiration for this color palette as well. So just to recap, it's going to be a mix of those mid-tone, very comforting, very nostalgic, very premium type colors, but then also have some of these darker hues as accents moving forward. So next, let's look at a few key style concepts that are really driving this trend narrative in a visual way. So our first one that we wanted to look at was the high-low lifestyle. So obviously high-low is nothing new, but specifically within the next season, it's going to be extremely imperative for this consumer that she has different pieces between high and low aesthetics to mix and match as she moves forward. And the reason again for this is that her life has never been more fluid than it is right now within COVID, but also is going to be particularly more fluid moving forward. And what I mean by that is there's going to be some balance, right, of this still COVID mindset of safety, of staying at home, of social distancing, but also moving into spaces of being able to go into the office or being able to go out with friends or loved ones. And it's really going to have one foot or one toe really in each of these worlds. And so as she moves back and forth between them, she's going to want to have pieces that flex between both of these spaces. So flex between wanting to go out and wanting to really present herself and style herself up and be excited for being able to be outside in the world again, but then also wanting some more lower pieces to be able to be comfortable at home, to be able to provide her that ease of wear, ease of use, etc. And so having this mix between high and low aesthetics is really helpful to her because it allows her to flex between both of these spaces without having pieces that are specific to one lifestyle or the other. So for example, this style concept is going to be really key for workwear, as she's going to again be flexing between working from home lifestyles, wanting things that are more comfortable so that she can lounge around in them, work from the couch, work from her bed, work from wherever she needs to, but then also be able to flex and move into the office as offices start to reopen as well. So pieces that are going to give her that sense of confidence, that are going to have more structure to them, that are going to be bolder and louder in the ways that she used to wear pieces to the office, but as we know, are also going to be a little bit leveled up as people are going to want to be dressing more fervently post-pandemic and kind of present themselves in a more exciting and elevated way. I am a really big fan of this meme that I saw going around a couple of days ago of, post-pandemic, everyone's going to be dressing as if it's their 10-year high school reunion, but every single day. So wanting to just, really pop off on a day-to-day basis. And so having that high-low lifestyle is going to allow her to have those more expressive, loud moments as she's outside in the world, but then also be able to go back home, not have to completely change into sweats, but have a more casual and comfortable aesthetic as she lounges as well. And then speaking of lounge, our next style concept is around invested lounge. So, as she first started going into the pandemic, realized she was going to be spending so much more time at home, there was this huge surge, as I'm sure you all know, within sweatpants, sweatsuits, anything with an elastic waistline was really just flying off the shelves for the last year. But as we discussed, there is sort of this comfort and sweatpant fatigue right now, where people are looking to really move past that and understand how to style themselves better for the home. So that way they're not just completely slounging around, but instead having more of an invested approach to this type of style concept. And so investment means a couple different things. Number one, it does mean a more premium price point for a specific core group of consumers. The pandemic has allowed them to spend less money on going out, on less restaurants, on less activities, on less travel. And because of this, they are spending more than on pieces that they can wear within the home, on their homeware, on their cooking. We're seeing these types of categories actually increase in consumer spend. And so because of this, invested lounge speaks to this piece that consumers are going to be wanting to spend more money than on pieces that they may have not spent money on in the past, but because these are the pieces that they're going to be wearing more within their homes, within this more working from home and living from home lifestyle, they are going to be willing to put more money behind this trend and behind this lifestyle and look. So that's one piece of this invested type style concept. But on the other side, we also know that they're looking to have that elevated sense of lounge. So no longer just like a $15 pair of Walmart sweatpants, but instead wanting to have a lounge set that is really a premium piece and gives them that sense of the fact that they did wake up, they did style themselves, they did dress for the day. So whether that is investment within the material quality or the silhouette, or having different sets that give them that feeling of put togetherness, there is going to be this extra investment in getting ready and having that aesthetic to their look, but still having comfort really drive forward. So now let's take a look at a few key pieces and ways that these style concepts manifest again into those actual items. So first being the late night lounge dress. I'm a really, really big fan of this piece because I think a lot of us, haven't been able to wear some of the typical going out pieces that we usually enjoy wearing or getting to dress up for an evening out. And the late night lounge dress kind of addresses this specific consumer desire to, again, have more of an elevated look within their day, even if they're not going to more elevated places or having elevated experiences. And so the late night lounge dress kind of has this aesthetic of being able to go out while you're still staying in. So as you've had this full day of working, You may not be going out to a bar afterwards or to a restaurant, maybe you are, but if you are lounging at night, having something that you can change into that goes across between having a dress that you would go out in, as well as maybe a slip that you would be going to bed in. So it's kind of a cross between those two worlds into this loungewear type dress. So it's going to have a very fluid silhouette. There's not going to be much tailoring to it, maybe simple gathers, maybe a simple waistline or elastic band. But really, it's more about this free flow silhouette that allows for that ease of movement and comfort. But at the same time, this is going to not be, just like a muumuu draping down your body. It is going to need a little bit of that elevation. And where that's going to come from is the material sourcing. So we're looking at a lot of silks and satins, a lot of those really premium type materials that feel good on the skin and give you that sense of luxury and appeal, even if it is a very simple style. And then we're also seeing this a lot within occasion wear, but again, for the home. So as consumers are feeling more comfortable spending their time in groups, as vaccines roll out, as that becomes safer, they may not be very much so ready to be going out necessarily for parties, for events, but instead having their groups at their own homes, and those groups, starting to get larger and larger. And so on the left, we see an example for, some of these types of events that are going to be happening in the home. So not necessarily wanting like a full-blown party dress, but again, more of this loungewear type dress that's a little bit more elevated. So specifically for the holidays, this dress is going to, again, be really, really key, but then thinking about a lot more of metallics, a lot more materials with different types of sheen, and again, giving sort of that premium aesthetic and look, even if the silhouette really prioritizes that comfort and that sense of solace in the home. Our next key piece is the working slouch set. So the working slouch set is kind of this riff off of your typical two-piece suit for the woman in the office place. So whereas, especially younger consumers may have never worn a suit to work before, they are familiar with different sets. And within COVID, I think we all have realized and noticed that different set pieces have been really, really taking to consumers because they have this aspect of being put together, but without having too much work, and the fact that you already know what's going to go together. You can just have that already kind of pre-styled in your mind and just go from there. But for the working slouch set, this gets a little bit more elevated again because we spoke about that flex between working from home and then also wanting to go into the office. And so because there is that flex between both worlds, the working slouch set needs to also elevate a little bit past what it's been in the last year. So whereas we've seen a lot of this within more of like just an elastic pant and then kind of a really easy cut long sleeve top, we're seeing this set kind of push more closer to, again, that traditional two-piece suiting outfit and aesthetic. So we're seeing a lot more different types of collaring, tailoring, again, more of those premium materials with a little bit more texture, a little bit more tactility, even going back to some more nostalgic type suiting, prints and patterns with different pinstripes, more of those nostalgic type colors of suiting that we've seen in the past. And so again, just elevating this past the traditional set that we've seen a lot of in the last year. Another great way to elevate this into the new season is also considering different three-piece sets. So whereas this usually consists of just a top and a pant, we're also seeing this really move forward with a top, a cardigan, and pant set, and that being another way of pushing this past where it's been for the last year and into the fall winter season. Our next key piece really goes into that modular style concept of thinking about ways that consumers are going to be wanting pieces to speak to a multitude of environments, occasions, and needs. And we see that within the key piece of the layering shacket. The layering shacket is going to be really, really helpful for fall, winter, as consumers within different climates are going to be wanting to have pieces that layer, but also pieces that can be unlayered if it's not as warm. I know a lot of your clientele are based in the South. If it's not going to be as cold where they are, but still wanting to have those pieces that speak to that autumn winter mindset and concept. And so the layering shacket is going to be really, really key to that, as it's first off a layering piece that isn't super heavy, but then also is going to be a layering piece that can again flex between different uses. So whether that is just being a shirt when it's a little bit still warmer in the autumn, but then being able to layer it on top of a turtleneck, on top of a crew neck, and again, having that multi-use aspect is going to be really, really helpful. We also are knowing that the 70s are continuing to be a trending aesthetic when it comes to prints and patterns. And so as we can see on the left, that layering jacket is going to be a really, really helpful driver for those trending prints and patterns that have more of that 70s retro aesthetic and vibe. And so having those prints and patterns on a layered jacket within a coordinating turtleneck, as you can see underneath, is going to be a really trend forward piece for the season. Our next key piece is the modular trench. So continuing off of this modular narrative, modularity, as we spoke about with the jacket, is really, really key to outerwear as temperatures flex between different degrees, and consumers are going to want to invest in better pieces rather than having a multitude of jackets for each temperature change. So we see this first off with the modular trench, where the trench is already kind of this elevated piece that consumers have in their wardrobes that's more of a premium outerwear choice, but it's also going to be pushed forward by having more modular elements in that traditional trench coat. So whether that is modularity within the layering of the pieces, having different elements of the trench that can provide extra warmth as temps go down, also different belting options to allow different cinching possibilities or different, just fashion possibilities within the belting, different pieces for the sleeves when it comes to elastics, when it comes to rolling it up, again, having different options for temp changes. But just having this trench that can really move past just the fall or spring in the opposite end seasons and into colder climates is going to be really key. As a bonus piece, modularity is also going to be really key for heavier coats as well. So if you're looking at any type of puffer jacket, any type of fleece jacket, modularity is really, really helpful with these pieces to help them move from, maybe just like a vest territory or a short sleeve into having those long sleeve approaches, again, for temps that are changing, as well as for consumers that are spending more time outdoors. We know that within the pandemic, the outdoor industry has really been booming, which is something we're going to speak about within Kidswear. And so because of that, consumers are really going to be investing in these outerwear pieces that are able to move with them as they spend more time outside and have more interaction with outdoor temps. And so having pieces that can move with them throughout those changes is really, really helpful. For accessories, our key piece within bags is going to be a focus on premium handles. So in the same way that we've been talking about premium being about investing in pieces that can be used across different experiences and events, there is also this element of investing in pieces that are very exciting, that are show-stopping, that give outfits kind of more of this exciting and surprising appeal. And when it comes to bags, we're definitely seeing this manifest within the premium handle. Handles that have this more conversationalist approach of really popping off whatever was the main source of material or shape or aesthetic and style of the rest of the bag. So the ways that we're seeing this obviously go past just sort of like occasion wear purse territory, but even into more casual bags, having a premium handle in terms of the material, or having a larger size to the handle, or having a more detailed stitching application. All of these are really great techniques to having that elevated handle that again speaks to that better, not more mindset for consumers. When it comes to footwear, we're seeing a similar mindset really push forward with the Novelty Boot. Now, boots haven't really seen that much love in the last year, as consumers didn't really have too much of a need to be wearing boots when it came to their day-to-day life inside. But as consumers are spending more time, going into the office some days, going out and running errands, boots are going to be having this resurgence of consumers wanting to wear things that they haven't been able to in the last year. And because of this, while for a lot of pieces, we are seeing consumers invest in more elevated basics, things that they could wear to multiple places, footwear is going to kind of have an opposite approach, where they're going to be looking at pieces that are going to be, again, more exciting, that are going to be surprising. And within boots, we're seeing this in a few different ways, whether that's, again, having a certain material within the boot or piece of footwear really contrasting the rest of it, having some sort of unexpected element to the shoe, or just having pieces that, again, lean into that more premium and luxury aesthetic with different gloss treatments, with different heel treatments, etc. And so that novelty boot is really going to speak into that story of wanting pieces that are more exciting and more surprising compared to the rest of the outfit or compared to the rest of the ways that we've been dressing over the last year. On the flip side of that trend for footwear, we have the high tread hiker. So as we brushed on briefly before, consumers are definitely spending a lot more time outside as the outdoor industry has been booming over the last year. And because of this, we're seeing more of these outdoor aesthetics start to trickle into more fashion and style pieces and into more everyday life, specifically around footwear. That chunky sole sneaker has definitely been trending in the last few seasons, but we're seeing this also now merge into hiking aesthetics as well, where these hiking boots that are very, very common in sort of outdoor wear and enthusiast consumers' lifestyles, those aesthetics are now merging into sneakers as consumers are wanting shoes that can blend back and forth between their everyday life sneakers that get them around town for different errands, for different events, etc. But then also pieces that they can wear outside as they spend more time hiking, spend more time out in nature, trying out different activities, etc. Rather than buying a whole new hiking boot, wanting pieces that flex between those two worlds. So it is really helpful that they already are used to seeing more of that chunky sole within their sneaker, but now they're looking for, again, the sneakers that also kind of mirror more of that hiking boot aesthetic that we see on the bottom right. So having really durable materials, having that high tread factor, and having pieces that are just extremely can withstand whatever environment, whatever activity they're going to be trying out within the season. When it comes to details, we're going to be seeing a lot of details mirror more of those femme classic type pieces. So whether that's really intricate or delicate buttons, shoulder treatments, lace detail work, neck and silk scarves, having more of these feminine pieces is really key to this trend as a different type of comfort. So a lot of aesthetics right now, when you think about the ways that we're dressing when we leave our home, often have a lot to do with survivalist type aesthetics. So wanting to really prepare ourselves for the outdoor world, wanting us to have what we need to get through whatever we're facing. And details such as these that are more feminine, that are more soft, that are more relaxed, kind of give an opposite sense of comfort in the fact that, yes, we need to be hardened for whatever 2021 is bringing, but at the same time we can have some amount of solace in also being able to be soft and feminine, and giving us that sort of sense again of premium luxury, even within a world where we need to be a little bit hardened at times. And so while our pieces in total may be there to protect us or give us whatever we need, we can have some of these detail type pieces and detail work that give that sense of comfort through more feminine aesthetics. Our next detail piece is around jewelification. So jewelification has been a huge trend across different categories, mainly because it has extra attention to pieces that we wear every day, and also because of a factor that we like to call above the keyboard dressing. So when you think about, you may be familiar with this concept, but for those who aren't, when you think about the ways that we're often interacting with the outside world, it's often like this, right, through a screen. And so our main real estate for dressing or for seeing other people's way of dress is for everything that they're wearing above the keyboard. And because of that, this amount of real estate is really, really what consumers are prioritizing when it comes to their purchases. So that's why we've been seeing increases in purchases around accessories, around hair accessories, glasses, cosmetic use, etc. Because that is what consumers are really pushing forward out into the world, again, always through a screen and always above the keyboard. And so jewelification is an aspect of that trend where we're being able to add these little details to our pieces and to our accessories that are going to have extra attention to them, but are also going to have an aspect of personality and personalization to these pieces. So again, we were talking about with the past detail trend, we have a lot of aesthetics right now that are very survivalistic, that are very hard and durable. But being able to personalize them, being able to lighten them up, soften them up, is really helpful to have that sense of comfort and that sense of balance moving forward. So within jewelification, we're seeing a lot of these pieces be jewelified by tiny charms, by especially different locks, as you can see on the left, by having different little gemstones or rhinestones to really just, again, elevate these pieces and give them a little bit more of a personal touch. For print and pattern, we see a lot of our print and pattern then move back into, as I was speaking about, that more natural influence. So as consumers are, thinking about how to flex between these two different worlds, thinking about how to meet the challenges of the new season ahead, we spoke about how they're really grounding themselves in nature, really grounding themselves in more circular and rhythmic processes to help them move forward within the season with a sense of ease and with a sense of comfort. And so print and pattern is definitely influenced by natural, more fluid patterns and more fluid rhythms. As you can see on the left, sometimes this manifests in very inky and watercolored type prints and patterns. It can also have a more marbled effect in the way that water rushing over a stream of pebbles can have sort of that marbly type texture. And thinking about ways of doing these prints and patterns is really exciting because it embraces a lot of new bottle dye techniques where dye is no longer just completely saturating a piece of fabric, but instead moving through it in more inky, splattered, marbled type effects that give it more of that fluid and free flowing print aesthetic. All right, so that brings us to the end of our women's wear trend. So let's go through a few key takeaways to really wrap up this trend before we move into kids wear. So when it comes to style concepts, we spoke about experimenting with both adaptable and premium aesthetics. So whether that was mixing high-low pieces to let consumers flex between more comfortable and then out in the world lifestyles, as well as having very fluid and luxurious premium, really loungewear. When it came to key items, we spoke about supporting the female consumer's hybrid lifestyle through pieces that shapeshift while still remaining comfortable. So whether that was the lounge dress, a lounge set that lets you shapeshift between working from home and working in an office, shackets that let you move through different environments, as well as the hybrid walking shoe. And then when it comes to details, we looked at exploring feminine detailing on classic pieces using delicate lace, buttons, shoulder treatment, as well as jewelification to give more of that personalization and softened aesthetic to durable pieces. And then finally, with print and pattern, we're looking at naturally fluid prints and patterns to mirror those fluid aesthetics and lifestyles using more exciting rebottled dyeing techniques rather than fully saturating a piece of fabric. So that is our first trend for women's wear, premium comfort. And so next, we're going to dive into our kids wear trend toolkit, which is around tiny adventures. So in the same way that comfort was kind of our driving word for women's wear, adventure is our driving concept within kids wear. Because the concept of adventure for children has, again, really transformed over the last year. So much so of kids' development is being able to experience new opportunities, new people, new environments. And the last year has really, really put a hold on a lot of those new experiences for children. They couldn't be going into school, they couldn't be exposed to different types of people, they couldn't really experience a lot of new events or spaces within their day-to-day life as their families were trying to keep them safe and keep their units contained. And so because of this, adventure really transformed for children into the outdoors. So looking at ways that they could explore nature, whether that was on a camping trip with their family or just within their own backyards. And so because of this, we're seeing tiny adventures really move forward as this piece of, yes, the outdoor industry is really booming right now, but also how do we trickle that down into the everyday for kids of being more of this focus on adventure and play in ways that are still safe and kid friendly. So as we said, new normals for children have really affected how and where they're spending their time and largely pushing them outdoors, whether that is on that family road trip, on a weekend camping adventure, a climb around the backyard. And because of this, they're going to be needing clothes and pieces and aesthetics that are going to be able to let them have a good adventure, let them be able to be muddy, let them be able to climb around without, really damaging whatever they're wearing. And they're going to be wanting them to be inspired by more of that natural world that they're exploring and have a true blend between outdoor and fashion styles. So when it comes to the color palette for Tiny Adventures, this one's a really fun one because it has, again, that more outdoor industry aesthetic and inspiration. And when you think about the outdoor market, a lot of those pieces are going to have more seasonless color palettes, as consumers don't usually have seasonal type outdoor pieces. It's usually just they have one piece that carries them through the year for whatever sort of outdoor activity they're doing. And so as this influences the Tiny Adventures trend, we're seeing a lot of these color pieces become less seasonal and more year-round in color and hue. So you're going to see a little bit of that seasonless approach, but you're also going to be seeing a lot of grounded naturals within this color palette. So you can see it's very green focused, green becoming a very important color because of its link to nature and then therefore adventure. But then this is also balanced out by pops of brights. So we see this within the yellow, we see this within that sweet coral, and just having that balance between, more of these greens, more of that natural type environment with the brights moving forward to make it a little bit more seasonal and trend forward as well. For style concepts, our first overarching style concept is around the outdoors, of course, outdoor explorers. So looking into more of this outdoor aesthetic where children are getting to, again, really be little adventurers in ways that they can't do in the rest of their life. The outdoors have been a huge way of parents being able to educate their kids on new experiences and on the way that our world works, as they haven't really been able to go into traditional schools or, again, go into those environments that they're used to, but instead being able to explore those types of concepts in different ways, whether that's looking at different plants that they can find outside, or being able to go on different little adventures wherever they can. The outdoors, as we've been discussing, is a huge style concept for this trend. But on the flip side, we also have this more vintage craft type concept for this trend. And for this consumer, that's spending more time outside, that is more exposed to nature and more exposed to the ways that nature can be affected also by fashion and by different industries. There's also going to be an appreciation for things that are going to be lived in longer, that are going to have been long lasting, that are going to have a story to them, have more meaning to them, have more of this nostalgic type factor of not wanting things that are constantly new all the time, but instead have more of a lived in, worn feel. And so vintage craft really reflects that by having more of this homestead type approach to fashion that isn't, again, just complete newness each season, but instead pieces that look like they have been worn in before, or maybe passed down through a family or through generations, to have more of this nostalgic type approach to pieces. So we have a few key pieces for how these style concepts are actually manifesting within the season. The first being our heirloom sweater. So as we said, within that nostalgic craft piece, a lot of pieces should be looking like they were passed down throughout a family or throughout generations to get to where they are today. And we see that specifically within heirloom sweaters, where we're seeing a lot of sweaters and cardigans specifically for boys that are being manufactured in techniques that were more akin to the ways that their fathers or grandfathers' sweaters actually may have been produced. So looking into more of those old-fashioned type manufacturing techniques, as well as more nostalgic and retro patterns throughout that. And these are going to be really, really key, again, for autumn winter, as they can flex between having more time spent outdoors, as well as pieces that can still be comfortable as kids spend time indoors as well. Next, we have working dungarees. This is for children that are going to be running around, wanting to move around freely, but also having pieces that, again, are more nostalgic in nature. So dungarees definitely having that nostalgia factor. They're not necessarily the most modern of pieces, but we are updating them in different ways. Number one is softening the color palette. So whereas often workwear or utility pieces often have these very durable, very earthy colors, we're seeing these really lighten up into more of the core colors of this trend color palette, excuse me. And so these pieces are going to be much lighter in nature. They're going to have a lot of those tactile materials that are going to add more personalization or sensationalized type materiality to the pieces. And they're also going to flex between both boys and girls clothing. So whether that's, a traditional dungaree with, the corduroy and the button straps and, your traditional pants, but then also flexing that into dresses and skirts for girls as well that give you more of that dungaree and utility type look, but also remain feminine and remain free flowing. Our next key piece specifically for girls is the full volume Prairie aesthetic. So for full volume Prairie, this definitely is resonant of the cottagecore type aesthetic that has been really trending over the last year, and pushing that into spaces that have more of that outdoor and nostalgic craft influence. So we're seeing this specifically within Prairie dresses, within updated poet shirts, within sleeves that have more volume and more fluidity, with more of those feminine details that we spoke about within the women's wear trend toolkit as well. So because of this, these should be pieces, that are, again, very free flowing, that let you move as you are outside, but definitely more pieces that have more of that outdoor influence that you wear inside more often than not. So thinking of pieces that you would imagine, someone running through a wheat field in, but having them exist more in a formal environment indoors as well. So we see this within details around the ruching, within the shoulder treatments, within specific elastic treatments, and then, as I said, within the Prairie dress and then poet shirts as well. Our next key piece is around the plush gilet vest and jacket. So plush is a very trending material for the season, specifically, again, in its influence from the outdoor wear industry and market. And we're seeing this really move forward within the vest and jacket, again, for more of those outdoor type adventure moments, especially for pieces that, again, remain modular. So having a vest that can transform back into a jacket or back into a vest, conversely, as kids are being able to roam around and have jackets do what they need to do. But the plush being a really key material for this as they move into those colder months. Our next key piece when it comes to footwear is the adventure hybrid. So in the similar way that we spoke about for women's wear of wanting these hybrid type shoes that have an outdoor influence, we're also seeing this really affect the kids market, where they're going to need shoes that allow them to roam about freely outside, but be a little bit more exciting and a little bit more fashion led than in previous ways, mostly because they're going to be shopping for these pieces, or the parents are going to be shopping for these pieces at more fashion type retailers rather than just outdoor wear type markets. So looking for pieces that, again, can flex between their outdoor activities as well as fashion and style aesthetics. So that is a rain boot or a hiking boot, even, horseback inspired rider type style boots. These pieces are going to have a lot more exciting and punchy colors, a lot more of those trend forward colors within the palette we spoke about, rather than always being grounded in neutral type tones or natural type tones. These are going to be a little bit more punchy and a little bit more exciting to have that hybrid type piece aesthetic. When it comes to details, our first detail piece is around recrafted denim. This is a really key detail idea because it speaks to that nostalgic craft style concept, where consumers are going to be looking for pieces that have more of a story type approach, that are more sentimental, that look like they've been lived in, maybe worn out and repaired again. And this is really key for denim specifically for the new season, as denim obviously has more of that nostalgic type approach when it comes to pants, shirts, and dungarees, as well as we spoke about as a key item. So with recrafted denim, we're looking at pieces that look like they don't just have, a trendy type patchwork for the aesthetic, but really were there to be recrafted as a new piece. This is also really helpful in terms of sustainability, of being able to use maybe worn out materials or dead stock materials in repurposed ways, so that consumers can have more of this, hand touch type feel when it comes to their denim pieces. So we see this within materials and fabrics that have been completely recrafted, as you can see on the left, or within more subtle pieces of patchwork, as you can see in the middle and right images. So just being able to overlay patches over existing denim also works as well. And then our next detail piece is around needlework details. So this is going to be in a similar way for women's wear, had this more feminine type detail look. Needlework and embroidery is really key for kids wear markets to do the same. Adding that little bit of personalization, adding that little bit of hand touched, again, nostalgic type craft is helpful to take these more durable outerwear pieces into a more personalized and singular approach. So for girls, we're seeing, again, more of those precious little feminine type details really move through with florals, with little touches when it comes to their collars and specifically sweaters and cardigans. But then we're also seeing more of this like camp style aesthetic move forward with needlework. So thinking about the ways that needlework could look like markings on a map, or nature inspired icons and symbols, whether that was, as you can see, like different animals or different leaves, different things that you see outside, but then reflecting them within your clothes, again, in more personalized detail work as well. Then when it comes to print and pattern, we're seeing soft plaids continue to push forward through this market, again, as we have this outerwear industry inspiration, but these are going to be more evolved than the traditional plaid. So rather than instead of being that very stoic, very rigid type plaid that we're used to seeing around the holidays, these are going to be plaids that are really softened, where they might be overlaid with different transparencies of different colors, where they may be a little jagged or a little blurred, but just have, again, more of that personality behind them, look like they were more hand created and hand drawn rather than rigidly created by a computer. Those types of prints and patterns are going to be what adds the personality and the nostalgia to pieces, and gives it that life moving into the season. And so for kids wear, our key takeaways for this trend toolkit we'll go over as well. So for style concepts, remembering that we took inspiration from both kid-friendly outdoor adventure and vintage craft aesthetics, with the hopes that this would be creating a trend that was going to feel very cozy, very homemade, very nostalgic, and really speaking to that consumer that's spending more time outside, but also appreciating more about their fabrics, their materials, their clothes, and how it got to them. So having that balance between wanting pieces that they can rough around in, that can be durable as they're outside, but also that were chosen for a purpose, and that were chosen for that more cozy lived-in factor. The ways that those style concepts then manifested into key items were by exploring the craft in the outdoors through heirloom sweaters, dungarees, prairie styles, and plush jackets. For details, we looked at craft details with recrafted denim pieces, delicate needlework, and then also embroidery, giving more of that personalization and softened look to these more hardened and hardy type pieces and aesthetics. And then finally, with print and pattern, we looked to rework those traditional outdoor plaids through new lenses, whether that was through blurred plaids, fragmented pieces, or overlay patterns, to again create that personalized narrative that feels more handcrafted, hand touched, and ultimately that more nostalgic craft type style concept, excuse me. So that wraps up our 2 trend toolkit. If you have any questions as to ways that these trends can manifest for your brand, different research techniques that we got to explore for creating these toolkits for you today, ways that these could be adapted for different seasons or different markets, any questions really, please feel free to reach out to me directly through my email, which is listed on the slide. And I will be happy to answer any of them and happy to move forward with hopefully bringing these trends to life for your brand and consumer in the coming season, which is very exciting. So that wraps up for today. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Thanks, everyone.